Tyson Fury has finally broken his silence and conducted an interview with Rolling Stone magazine in which he shed some light on what's been going on with him behind the scenes over the past few months and actually admits that he's been doing lots of cocaine. So let me quote Tyson Fury directly here from this interview in Rolling Stone magazine. Fury says, "Listen, I've done lots of things in my life. I've done lots of cocaine, lots of it. Why shouldn't I take cocaine? It's my life, isn't it? I can do what I want. Yeah, I have done cocaine. Plenty of people have done cocaine as well. What the fuck has that got to do with anything? That ain't a performance enhancing drug. Am I not allowed to have a life now as well? Do they want to take my personal life off me too? I've not been in the gym for months. I've not been training. I've been going through depression. I just don't want to live anymore, if you know what I'm saying. I've had total enough of it. They forced me to the breaking edge. Never mind cocaine, I just didn't care. I don't want to live anymore. So cocaine is a little minor thing compared to not wanting to live anymore. I never took other drugs ever in my life. I only started to take cocaine in the last few months. It is crazy that's what's going on, but listen, I don't really care. They've won. They've got what they wanted. That's it. I'm fat as a pig. I'm 185 pounds, 190 pounds. It is what it is. I've been out. I've been an emotional wreck. I've been on a mission. I've been out trying to handle my life. It's been a witch hunt ever since I won that world title. Ever since I got a bit of fame for doing good, there's been a witch hunt on me because of my background, because of who I am and what I do. There's a hatred for travelers and gypsies around the world, especially in the United Kingdom, especially with the British Board of Boxing Control and some of the sanctioning bodies of the world titles. I had to fight one of the best champions in history. No one gave me a prayer. I finally prevailed over the guy, beat him, and I get treated like shit. Within a week, the IBF, the International Boxing Federation, stole my belt and gave it to somebody else, knowing full well that I couldn't defend it in a week because I had a rematch set with Klitschko. That was the first bit of corruption involved with boxing. From then on, it's been nothing more than a witch hunt. From then on, they've tried to get me chucked out of boxing because they cannot tame me. They cannot hire me. I'm not for sale. No one can turn a key on my back. No one can do nothing to stop me. I want to expose them for what they are. The British Board of Boxing Control is in on it too. They're all in it together. The drug testing companies are in on it as well. If I tested positive in February 2015 for drugs, why let me fight the long reigning champion and relieve him of all his belts in November? Why not strip me in February? So those are the words of Tyson Fury in an interview with Rolling Stone magazine. Now I think Tyson Fury raises some interesting points. He says some things I agree with. He also says some things I disagree with. First of all, let me tackle the things which I disagree with. I've mentioned this before, but just for the sake of this video and a bit of clarity, I'll go through it again. Tyson Fury says that the IBF stripping him of his world title was corruption. I beg to differ because he was mandatory challenger with the WBO for Vladimir Klitschko. And as mandatory challenger, you are not obligated to sign any type of rematch clause in a contract with a champion. In fact, Tyson Fury is the first fighter that I can remember. I mean, there may have been others, but it's so rare that I can't remember anybody else. He's the first fighter that I can remember who was mandatory challenger for a world title that signed a rematch clause. Very unusual. When you're doing things like that, signing rematch clauses when you're mandatory challenger, don't start blaming the governing bodies for stripping you when you don't face your own mandatory challenger. Tyson Fury was the party who acted unusually in that situation, not the IBF. Sure, the IBF may have been influenced by Kathy Duvra or this, that, and the other to allow her fighter Glasgow to fight for the belt. But at the end of the day, if Tyson Fury had done what all the other mandatory challengers do and not sign a rematch clause, then he wouldn't have got stripped. He would have been able to fight Glasgow and that would have been that. But for some strange reason, he decided to put himself in a position where he could get stripped legitimately. If it was an illegitimate action by the IBF, he could have sued them. But it wasn't an illegitimate action. It was an action within their rules, which he broke by not fighting the mandatory after beating Vladimir Klitschko because he signed this weird rematch clause when he was mandatory challenger. Strange. So I take issue with that. Secondly, I also take issue with this notion that Tyson Fury is being targeted by the boxing establishment and also the media because of the fact that he's a traveler, a gypsy. I just don't see that at all. You've got Billy Joe Saunders, who's a gypsy. You've got Tyson Fury's cousin, Andy Lee, who's a gypsy. You've got other fighters in the past in Britain, like Henry Wharton, who was a gypsy. These guys were not targeted the way Tyson Fury is being targeted by the boxing establishment and by the media. Not at all. Why? Very simple. They were not making the kind of public statements that Tyson Fury has been making. And I'm not just talking about regular trash talk here. Tyson Fury has been, for example, criticizing Zionist Jews. He's been criticizing the role of women in modern day Western society. He's been showing support for the people of Palestine. He's been critical of homosexuals and transgenders. Now, I'm not having a go at Tyson Fury for making these statements. But what I am telling you is, if you make those kind of statements as a public figure, as a person of influence, you make them kind of statements, I don't care what background you come from, powerful people are going to come for you because basically you are going totally against the status quo. You're going totally against what the Western establishment is trying to push in Western society and what they're trying to promote. You go against that and you're in any type of position of influence. It don't matter whether you're black, white, mixed race, Chinese, Muslim, whatever you are, Christian. It don't matter what background you come from. You make statements like that, powerful people are going to come for you. And as I say, Billy Joe Saunders, Andy Lee, many other traveling people haven't had the kind of, criticism and negative attention from the boxing establishment and from the media that Tyson Fury is receiving. So it's got nothing to do with the fact that he's a traveler. I'm not saying that travelers don't get discriminated against. In Britain, they certainly do. In my lifetime, I've seen lots of people say derogatory things about gypsies. Loads of people say stuff. Yeah, I know for a fact that there are certain nightclubs all over Britain that have a policy of not allowing gypsies inside. But at the same time, there are nightclubs that have a policy of not allowing black people inside. That's been exposed in the media over the past year or so. And if there's any group in Britain right now which is suffering worst from discrimination, it has to be Muslim people, Pakistani people, etc. I don't need to go into the reasons why. But, I'm not a member of that community. I'm not a member of the gypsy community. So I'm an outsider looking in. And from what I see, Muslims are being discriminated against far worse in Britain than gypsies are. And I saw an interview recently with John Fury where he compared the treatment of gypsies today to how black people were getting treated 120 years ago. I mean, such a ridiculous thing to say, but let me just entertain it for a second. 120 years ago, black people were not even allowed to fight for the heavyweight championship. Are gypsies banned from fighting for the heavyweight championship today? No. 120 years ago, black people were getting lynched in public, beaten to death, mutilated, having their eyes cut out, their tongues cut out, ears cut off, beheaded, dragged behind lorries and pickup trucks until their bodies disintegrated. That was going on a regular basis to black people in public 120 years ago. Is that happening to gypsies today? Hell no. There was wide-scale segregation, enforced segregation between black people and white people 120 years ago. Black people weren't allowed to frequent the same establishments. Black people weren't allowed to sit on the same part of the bus. So comparing the treatment of gypsies today to black people 120 years ago is beyond ridiculous. Gypsies today don't even get treated as badly as black people did 50 years ago. Never mind 120 years ago. Are you mad? When Muhammad Ali was growing up, incidents like the Emmett Till situation happened. If you don't know about Emmett Till, go look up Emmett Till. Most black people, particularly from the United States, know all about Emmett Till. That happened like what, 50 years ago or something, 50, 60 years ago? That wasn't that long ago. Talking about 120 years. Absolute nonsense. John Fury needs to thank his lucky stars that gypsies are not getting treated as badly as black people were 120 years ago, because that was real persecution. Serious, terrible, medieval, vicious type stuff that was going on. It's very actually disrespectful to say something like that, to say that gypsies are being treated as bad as black people 120 years ago. Total nonsense. So, yeah, I do take issue with that. The reason Fury is feeling the wrath of some powerful people within the British establishment, or at least the British boxing establishment in the media, is because of comments that he's made. And it don't matter what race you are or whatever. You make comments like that, you're going to have problems. No two ways about it. As far as the things which Tyson Fury said that... Oh, sorry, one more thing as well. John Fury, Tyson's dad, says that Tyson's mental state is down to this discrimination. He's depressed because of all the discrimination and the way he's been attacked by the press and all this type of stuff. Tyson Fury has had problems, emotional problems, mental problems, long before he won this world title. You go back to Tyson Fury's early career, long before anybody thought he'd even fight for a world title, the majority of the public. And this guy admits that he was a mess, physically and emotionally. So it's clearly not down to the Klitschko thing. This is clearly an ongoing thing with Tyson Fury. Something which he's been living with for many years, which is not really about any type of discrimination in terms of his mental state. I'm sure the witch hunt, which he says is being conducted against him, certainly isn't helping his mental state, that's for sure. It might be aggravating it and making it worse. Yeah, I can definitely accept that. But to blame it all down to this witch hunt is disingenuous. No, Tyson Fury is not the most emotionally or mentally stable person to begin with before there's any type of discrimination against him. Yeah, that's just a fact. And again, when it comes to discrimination against gypsies, of course there's discrimination against gypsies within the general public in the UK. I've seen that and witnessed that for myself. But when it comes to the British Board of Boxing Control and the media, so on and so forth, they don't really care what background you're from as long as you sing from the correct hymn sheet in terms of the way you project yourself, the things you represent publicly, etc. Like Amir Khan. Yeah, there's a lot of discrimination against Muslims and Pakistani people in the UK. But Amir Khan is not saying anything controversial. He's not saying anything political, which goes against what the establishment is trying to push. So therefore, the establishment, the British Boxing Board of Control, the sanctioning bodies, they're all happy with Amir Khan because he's doing the mainstream thing. He's playing his typical good boy mainstream role. And therefore, they don't come down on him. They reward him. They give him his little biscuits and stuff like that. Same with Anthony Joshua. He's doing his little mainstream thing. He's not speaking out of turn. He's not trying to make any controversial political statements. He's not trying to criticize the role of women in today's Western society. He's not doing none of that. And therefore, he's not getting attacked by the media and by the British establishment, boxing establishment. So that is what that is. What I will say, though, just to close this out, is kind of a repeat of what I've said before. I do agree with a lot of the things that Tyson Fury has said. Not all of them, but I do agree with a lot of the things, a lot of the so-called controversial statements he's made. I agree with a lot of them, and I applaud him for having the balls to come out and say these things. But of course, there will be, inevitably, people who come after you for saying this kind of stuff. And as well as as well as all that, Tyson Fury is not the most tactful person. There's a way to say the kind of things that he says and portray himself in a better light than he has. And again, this is not a criticism. This is just maybe food for thought. You could raise the exact same issues that Tyson Fury has raised, but do it in a more palatable way. And I think if you do that, it's harder for the powers that be to attack you if you're coming across in a more intellectual fashion. Tyson Fury comes across as somebody who is ranting and raving a lot of the time, swearing and what have you. And because he does that, he puts a lot of people off from the get-go. They think he's vulgar and this, that, and the other. So the message that he's actually conveying is lost or missed by a lot of people because of the fact that he comes across as vulgar. If he was able to articulate himself a bit more eloquently and in a less, in a less raucous fashion, then some of the more controversial statements that he's made, I don't think would be as easy to shoot down as they have been, Just some food for thought anyway. So let me know what you think about Tyson Fury's comments here, people. Is there a witch hunt against them? And one thing I have to say as well, I know I said I'm going to close out the video. One thing I have to say as well, and I am going to do a video on this, is when he mentions the situation with UCAD. If they caught him for drugs in February 2015, why did they allow him to go through with the Klitschko fight? That is an excellent question. And this is what I wanted from Tyson Fury. I said in a previous video, if this is a setup and he has been targeted and framed or whatever, he needs to speak out about it. I'm glad that he's finally trying to do that now, because this will hopefully put some pressure on the UK anti-doping agency, UCAD, and get them to explain themselves, because they have got some serious explaining to do. Very serious explaining. How have they been allowed to get away with this? What the hell is going on here with UCAD? Very, very strange stuff. So, yeah, it's good that he put the question out there. Hopefully, somebody can put some pressure on UCAD. I mean, if, like Tyson Fury says, the British Board of Boxing Control are in on it too, then I guess that would rule the British Board of Boxing Control out as being a party that can put sufficient pressure on UCAD. I don't know, somebody has to though. Maybe we can try and put some pressure on UCAD. We, the public, start asking some questions. So drop your comments in the comment section below. Let me know how you feel about everything I've talked about in this video. All the Tyson Fury quotes, all the points he raised, the points I raised, etc., etc. I'm always very interested to read you guys' comments. So yeah, let me know. It's your boy Hatman, I'm out.